Donald Trump is facing $500 million in legal penalties, an amount that's growing by tens of thousands every day. The judgment in his New York civil fraud trial represents one of the biggest tests of the former president's personal wealth in decades.
He is probably going to have to liquidate assets, and I think it is going to put tremendous pressure on the Trump organization, and there's a risk that it all begins to cascade.
And he's up against the clock. For now, he has until late March to come up with the funds. Otherwise, the New York Attorney General could begin to seize some of his assets. On March 18th, Trump's lawyers said he has been unable to obtain a bond to guarantee payment, despite negotiating with some of the largest suretors in the world. So what options does Trump have to finance this mounting bill? We asked Wall Street Journal editor Peter Grant to break down where the former president's wealth stands today.
We've looked at his business for a long time, and our best guess is that his net worth today is roughly around $3 billion. Trump is under a lot of stress right now, but it doesn't compare with the kind of stress that he was facing during the recession of the early 90s.
In 1975, we had a recession, but that was a picnic compared to this. That was an absolute picnic.
Just before that recession, he was a lot more ambitious in terms of his business goals, and he was buying assets right and left.
We got it out on time for you folks.
So we're going to really be a good competitor, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
When the recession of the early 1990s hit, he couldn't pay his debts, and his empire began to crumble. He had to sell a lot of these assets, but even more, he had to put some of his casinos in Atlantic City into bankruptcy. He himself was on the brink of personal bankruptcy.
Trump managed to survive the recession and then changed his tactics.
He started to leverage more his name, his brand. He would sell his brand to developers who would be building projects. They'd put the Trump name on it, but Trump wouldn't have the risk. One of the things that Trump has done to shore up his balance sheet in recent years is sell assets. Trump has numerous assets throughout the world. They're primarily in the U.S., the ones he owns. He owns resorts, condos, hotels, and he has pretty big stakes in some big office buildings. The Trump balance sheet today is much stronger than it used to be. It has roughly $400 million of cash on it, and he's deleveraged by about $300 million, which puts him in the position of increasing leverage if he needs fast cash.
Those cash reserves are now in question as his legal troubles mount. On February 16th, a New York judge ordered Trump to pay $355 million in penalties, plus another $100 million in interest, which will continue to grow by roughly $100,000 per day. This comes after the judge found the former president fraudulently valued parts of his real estate empire to secure more favorable loans.
The case is a complete and total sham. It's a sham case.
There's a liquidity problem fundamental to all of this. The likelihood that somebody has $450 million sitting around just is not possible.
Trump appealed the ruling, but for it to move forward, he must secure the financing for what might be the full amount of his penalty. In late February, an appeals judge rejected an offer from Trump's lawyers to post a $100 million bond rather than the full amount. That decision is under review by a panel of appellate judges. Trump doesn't have too many options. He could put up the entire amount in cash, but doing that isn't easy.
He can't deplete all his cash. He needs a significant amount of cash to pay the bills, so he can't use all $400 million.
On the other hand, Trump could secure a bond that would guarantee payment if he were to lose his appeal. They're typically backed by cash, investments, or other assets.
He could potentially borrow against those assets, come up with the cash, and just use that cash for the bond.
The fees a company might charge for the bond could also prove costly.
It's like any other instance in which you're securing a line of credit of sorts, right? Which is, there's going to be a negotiation over what they're going to charge you for this. So I don't think anybody thinks this is going to be an inexpensive bond.
Trump has until late March to post a bond. But in a filing to a New York appeals court on March 18th, his lawyer said he has faced insurmountable difficulties and that a bond in the judgment's full amount is a practical impossibility.
We will seek judgment enforcement mechanisms in court. And we will ask the judge to seize his assets.
The AG has no interest in keeping it quiet. I think there is no question that if Trump is unable to secure the kind of undertaking that will allow him to stay the proceeding, this is game on for her.
Trump's lawyers have acknowledged he lacks the liquidity to cover the judgment. If the court doesn't intervene, they said that he might be forced to unload his prized real estate in a fire sale.
He has 3 ways to pay off the judgment without selling assets. 1 would be through the available cash, 2 would be borrowing against the assets, and 3 would be borrowing money from friends. The worst case scenario would be for him to start selling assets. He'd have to sell them quickly. Buyers would have the potential of taking advantage of the situation, and he wouldn't get the kind of prices that he would hope for. So that would be certainly a bad scenario for him.
Even though some of these properties may be viewed as iconic properties, they may be worth a lot of money. There aren't a lot of people who are willing to spend that kind of money.
A spokesperson for Trump did not respond to questions over how he plans to finance the judgment. His lawyers said in the March 18th court filing that obtaining cash through a fire sale of his real estate would result in irrecoverable losses. Trump cleared one financial hurdle for a separate case on March 8th when he secured a nearly $92 million bond to guarantee a defamation judgment he owes to writer E. Jean Carroll. In the meantime, Trump's legal team has been focused on its appeal efforts. It's possible those proceedings could last a year or more.
Were he to win the appeal, and in this instance, let's assume win means the entire conviction is vacated, then none of this matters. The only thing he would actually be out at this point, other than legal fees, would be the cost of the bond. The other piece that you always have to remember is these numbers aren't ever going down. They're going up and up and up. And they will continue to go up until the appeal is exhausted. So assuming Donald Trump does not win on appeal, the number that we're going to see at the end of this is going to be significantly larger than the number we see now. And again, we're going to be right back here where we are today.